Can you believe it? Another 72 hours. Actually, we're at 73 hours in this week's fast. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode, and we are improving our metabolism. We're reversing chronic disease. We're improving our insulin resistance, and we are using fasting as a method to do that. One of the most powerful tools that you have at your disposal, and it's free. You can do it at any time you want, and you are setting yourself up for the best possibility of reversing your chronic disease. Hey, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E if you're new to me. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. We are creating the life we've always wanted. And here we are living limitless lives, which says that, hey, we're not allowing anything to prevent us from doing what we need to do. We are presenting our best selves, our best health, and our best plans for our lives. We're breaking free from those boundaries. We're moving beyond those borders and beyond those obstacles that try to inhibit us. If you're new to me, go ahead and put new in the comments, because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music to let you know that I'm excited that you're here. If you do have questions as we go throughout the show, go ahead and put those in the chat, in the comments, with a question mark or a Q in front of it, so I'll know that that is a question. We've got some things that we're going to take a look at here in just a little bit. I've got my monitor, I've got my glucose meter, I've got my reports that we'll take a look at so you can see what's been going on with my blood sugars, and so we can see what's been happening over the last several days. If you have questions as we move throughout the space, go ahead and drop those in. We'll say hello to some of our community members, and we'll get into what we do. So let's go ahead, and the first thing that I want to do is I want to set the backdrop of what we're doing and why we're here. We have been working to improve our metabolism. Metabolism is that mechanism that the body uses to convert energy or get energy from the food that we eat. So whenever you eat something, the body takes that and breaks it down and converts it into energy. And that is the process we call metabolism. At the heart, at the base for all of the diseases that we have, the chronic illnesses, is dysfunctional metabolism. Dysfunctional metabolism. So things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, prediabetes, fatty liver, polycystic ovarian syndrome, obesity, and of course, dysfunctional or metabolic syndrome, those are all diseases along the spectrum. And so our goal is to improve our metabolism if we want to reverse, that's right, I used the word reverse, and get rid of and delay and improve our chances of being successful in managing all of those diseases. And so the tools that we're using are the tools that specifically are targeting the underlying problem when it comes to dysfunctional metabolism. And the underlying problem is actually insulin. And we'll talk more about that here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's take a look at blood sugars. See what's been going on with my blood sugar so you can see what those numbers are. And then we get into our discussion as we review fasting as one of those tools that we use to improve our metabolism. So right now, according to my Freestyle Libre, and you see this number right here, my blood sugar is 64. And you'll see for most of today, it's been hovering right around 100. It looks like it spiked up to maybe 120, 130 at one point. And then at the end of the day, down here, this graph that you see, this graph is showing what my blood sugars are. Let me change my finger a little bit. There we go, right there. Okay. So the red part of the graph is below 70, and the rest of it is above 70. Actually, I said hovering about 120, but it's actually hovering maybe between 70 and 90, but we'll take a look at that here in just a minute when we look at the Dexcom Clarity, which let's go ahead and do that right now. And so here's my Dexcom Clarity over the last 12 hours. And one of the reasons I like the Clarity is that I can actually put my finger, not Dexcom Clarity, but the Dexcom app. I can put my finger on it and you can actually see what my blood sugars have been going. And you'll see, so for most of today, we've been in the low 100s. And right about here is what I call the toothpaste effect, right? So it popped up to about look at that, 136, right? So we started out right around 110 and then up to 136. and then kind of hovered in the 100s, and of course now it's starting to come back down. Okay, so that's what's been going on. And if I go to a 24-hour view, kind of the same thing. You see in the low 100s, spiked up there about 120, and then let's see, what time was that? That was I don't know, about 12 a.m. And then with the numbers that we just saw, right? So we started out in the 1-teens and then spiked up, and then now we are on our way back down, right? And so let's go ahead and let's look at my monitor or my Dexcom clarity report. And you see there, this is for the last 14 days. For the last 14 days, my average blood sugar has been 113 with a glucose management indicator of 6.0. So that means if I were to get an A1C, this is what I would expect my my A1C to be. I can't call it an A1C because it's a calculated number, but it is a good estimation. I am in target 99% of the time, which is right here. And my target is anywhere from 70 to 180. Now, I always want to make a point here for everyone. When I talk to my patients, I usually tell them that I want their average blood sugar to be between 100 and 120, okay, 100 and 120. So even though that range right there says 70 to 180, I don't want them there. Normal blood sugars are 70 to 99. So even though we've allowed the blood sugars to be higher, it is a safety mechanism issue. It is not what the body is expecting, right? So regardless of what people tell you, yes, that's what we say you can be, but in actuality, the body wants 70 to 99, right? Because the definition of diabetes is 90, the pre-diabetes is 100 to 125, and diabetes is 126 and above. So if a normal or pre-diabetes is 100 to 125, then the normal is below that. Okay, so just a point that I want to make there, because we sometimes will get that a little turned around, and we don't want to want to give a false impression there. So when you see those numbers, understand that yes, we are saying that you can be in that range, but that really is not the normal range. All right, so let's get back over there. So 70 to 180, and if I do a 90-day average, you'll see my average is 111. So once again, between 100 and 120. My glucose management indicator is 6.0. Once again, it is a calculated number, so I can't call it an A1C, but it is a good estimate of what the A1C would be. And right here, 97 is I'm in target 97% of the time. Once again, the range being 70 to 180. If I look at my actual numbers over the course of the last several days, and this is an important one, I always want to make sure that we do this, because it is a good discussion to have as we move through the idea of fasting. And so I'm going to go back and start here on Tuesday afternoon. So this is where I started my fast, right about there. Okay, so not start the fast. That's when I ate my last meal. So I ate my last meal right in here, and so started the fast right about here. So my blood sugars were, one teens. And if you didn't see what I ate as my last meal, go back and watch that check-in that I did on Tuesday afternoon. And so it was a salad, some salmon. I think there were some Brussels sprouts in there, some broiled Brussels sprouts, and I had some baked chicken, right? So that was the gist, and I think there was some balsamic vinaigrette dressing. And so that's what I started the fast with. And looking now at the blood sugars following that. So we started out in the 1-teens, and I think it spiked up to about 126. Actually, no, 136. 138 actually, right there. Spiked up to about 138, so 1-teens to 138. And remember, whenever we talk about managing diabetes, for those of you who are diabetic, the marker of whether you did a good job with the meal is, does the blood sugar stay within 40 points of where it started? right? So that's the kind of general rule of thumb. Now, ideally, going back to the idea that normal blood sugars are 70 to 99, ideally we don't want any spiking at all, right? So if we wanted to really say that diabetes is not having an effect, we want blood sugars that are remaining below that, okay? But as a rule of thumb, if your blood sugar spikes or changes within 40 points, then we say that you've done a good job with that meal. So 138, and then I want you to watch over the rest of the next 24 hours, right? So 24 hours, so we started there at 1 o'clock, and going into the next morning in the 1 teens, dip down right here about 102, and then here comes what I call the toothpaste effect, right? So that spikes up, I think got up to 130, actually 140, look at that. And then continued coming back down over the course of the rest of that day. So once again, and then up to 1 teens, right? So right here, I would have been at 33 hours of fasting. Now, if I go forwards, and this was our check-in last night at 56 hours, right? Look at those numbers. And so during the fast, what we want is those blood sugars to not be spiking, right? And so the things that you eat, the very last meal that you eat coming into the fast should be of such, it should be, the composition of the food should be such that it doesn't cause huge spikes. Okay? And then of course, coming into today, as we are now getting to our 72 hours, and actually we're a little bit above 72 hours right now. So we'll come back and we'll make another point about that as we go through our fasting and talk about, today we're talking about how to prepare for the fast, how to get through the fast, and how to end the fast. So the things that we do outside of the fast, very important as well. Let's go ahead, and I want to do a quick check-in with you, and the spaces I always check in with, there are 3 of them, right? So how am I doing physically, mentally, and emotionally now that I'm in the fast? So let's go ahead and just do that. And why do I do physically, mentally, and emotionally? Remember, those are actually 3 of when we talked about the domains of health, there are 8 domains of health. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, occupational, intellectual, and so forth. We did an entire mini-series on that several months ago. So go ahead and watch that. But of the domains of health, probably the top 3, whenever we're talking about how we are as human beings, physical, mental, and emotional are the 3 top ones, right? Because this is where people tend to have their most difficulty. So when I talk about fasting, I want to know, and I want you to be checking in with yourself, particularly if you're doing one of the extended fasts, you want to be sure that you are doing well as you go through the fast, because your ability to get through this fast now has impacts and implications on what happens to the fast in the future, because your brain and your body will remember, because it'll say, oh, you remember that time when we tried to fast and it didn't go well, so let's not fast anymore, right? So let's make sure we do that. All right, so physically, how am I doing physically? Well, here, what most people talk about, they talk about their energy when it comes to fasting. They say, well, hey, I'm feeling as though I am drained, or I hit a wall, or I'm walking through mud or quicksand. So those are comments that people make. I am actually feeling pretty good. And the point that I want to make here is, if you are not well rested, then when your body's shifting, because there are lots of hormonal shifts that are going on, lots of chemical shifts, lots of neuronal shifts that are happening. And if you are not well rested, then you will feel those more profoundly than you should. And so sometimes people will feel that they're not used to those symptoms, or as the body is going from burning carbs, glycogen, to burning fat, there is that short period where there is an exchange. And so you can feel that as a big dip. So if you're not well rested, that will happen. I am right now rested. I've been doing a good job of this week, because that's our theme for this week, by the way. So we'll come back and talk about that. So I'm feeling pretty good. Also, people will say I feel lightheaded, sweaty, dizzy. I feel like my heart's racing or skipping a beat. Well, if you are not hydrated, then the blood volume goes down, And if the body has to keep getting the same amount of nutrients, oxygen and so forth, and to the same cells, because the requirement doesn't go down, then in order to get the same amount of nutrients to the cells with lower volume, the heart rate goes up. And so your body pumps the blood faster. And so people feel that as palpitations, feeling heart racing, skipping beat. Sometimes they'll feel sweaty. I gave the example when I was out several weeks ago preparing for camp. So we took our Pathfinders camping. And so I was out in the field, had not done a good job of hydrating. I was fasting, and I was out down there staking down tents, putting down tarps and so forth. And I bent over, and when I stood up, right, all of a sudden things got a little woozy, and my vision started to get dim, right? Once I hydrated, then that all went away. Okay. So physically, making sure that you're doing a good job. Mentally, what happens mentally actually comes right on the heels of the physical. Because if you're tired, if you're fatigued, if you have not done a good job, then your thought processes are not as clear. In fact, they say someone who's not rested, someone who doesn't have a good sleep, their reflexes are just as though someone has been, they're intoxicated, right? So you want to make sure, right, mental and physical go together. And right now, mentally, I'm feeling clear because I'm rested. And of course, I'm always doing things. I was going to talk about the mental math and the mental stuff that people do to keep their brains going. You should try that, by the way. So I'm doing well. And then emotionally, lots of good things have happened this week for us, for our family. Excited to be in this space. Physically and health-wise, I'm doing well. Practice is going well. I'm here with you, hanging out. My team is doing well at work, family, my son. Yeah, so everything is going well. And imagine if I'm rested well and mentally I'm clear, how much that supercharges my emotional being. So right now, physically, mentally, and emotionally, I'm actually doing pretty good. Okay. All right. So I think, let me hop back over here for a minute. All right. So that is how I'm doing physically, mentally, and emotionally. So anything that you want to do, anything you want to improve, anything that you are trying to change, you want to make sure that you are doing a good job of checking in with yourself. So let's go ahead and let's hop into our discussion for today, and let's do that right now. All right, so we are actually doing a review of fasting review. So how do we prepare for the fast? How do we go through the fast, and then how do we end the fast? That is what we do on Fridays. But our pillar that we're working on this week, and remember we've walked through the pillars for the Limitless Living Health Action Plan. We started several weeks ago talking about walking, and then fasting, and then strength training, and then balanced bite, which is the way we eat. And then this week, we've introduced the idea of rest and restoration. And so what has been happening for a lot of people is that they hit fasting, and they hit fasting hard. Okay, so they start maybe their intermittent fasting, and they kind of work their way up, and they are now fasting extended fasts, right? So 24 hours or longer is what we call an extended fast. Or they're doing, alternate day fasting. They're doing one meal a day. They're doing some form of fasting. And sometimes they don't see improvement, or they see minor improvement. And what happens is we blame the fasting as though fasting doesn't work. So let me say to you, for everybody there who's ever going to listen to me, fasting works. Fasting works. Now, it has to do with how we are implementing the fast. Because I want you to think about this. Let's come away from fasting for a minute, and let's just talk about physiology in general. If I don't feed you long enough, your blood sugar is going to go down. Your weight's going to go down. Fatty liver is going to improve. Blood pressure is going to go down. High cholesterol is going to go down. Your risk of heart disease is going to go down. Okay? Now, what I'm saying right now is really a kind of a starvation idea, right? So if I don't give you nutrients for long enough, and I'm talking long enough, then eventually we're going to see those benefits, quote unquote benefits, or side effects all through the space. Okay? So if we don't eat long enough, those are things that are going to happen. What fasting is saying, though, is this is not a starvation mode, right? So we're not trying to say, hey, we're going to not feed you for 30 days or 100 days or 99 days. What we're saying is what we want to do is we want to come aside and we want to give the body space in between our eating windows so that we get some of the metabolic benefits that would happen in that long not eating space, the starvation space. We want to get those benefits, but we want to do that in a healthy way. And that's what fasting says. That's what fasting does. But what happens is we get into the fast, but we don't realize that there is a critical component to fasting. And a critical component to all the things that we talk about when we talk about the health action plan. Let's walk through those together. So when we walking is great. When we strength training is great. When we eat well, eating well is great. But a lot of the repair that happens in our bodies doesn't happen while we're fasting alone. It doesn't happen while we're strength training. It doesn't happen while we're walking. It actually happens when we're sleeping. That's when the body begins assimilating the things that are going on during the day. That's when our hormones begin regulating, become more stable. That's when the body begins to repair. One of the things that we've been doing is the strength training, right? Strength, strategy, and mindset. So if you have not joined us every morning at 6 o'clock, strength training and mindset. And so we go out and we're lifting weights. And what the bodybuilders will tell you as you're lifting, it's great to be lifting, but it is the recovery part that gives you the strength and gives you the bulk. So if you never take the time to give the body a chance to recover, then you're always in the mode of breaking down. So we want to give the body a chance to recover. When we sleep, when we rest, we're decreasing cortisol. Cortisol is one of those things that causes high blood sugar. High blood sugar causes insulin to have to come out, and insulin inhibits a lot of the downstream benefits that we want when it comes to fasting. For those of you who are doing ketogenic diets, if you're stressed, if you have high blood sugar, the ketogenic diet is not going to work because insulin inhibits ketosis. Insulin inhibits ketosis. When we have patients who come to the hospital, right, who are in DKA, for example, there's an extreme case of high blood sugars, it's an emergency. We give them fluids and we give them insulin. And in fact, when their blood sugar gets better, if the ketones are still high, we give them sugar water to keep their blood sugars high so that we can give them insulin because we know that the insulin is going to inhibit the ketones. Okay? So our goal is, as we are walking through each of the pillars, that we are pairing rest with every single thing that we do. Getting good sleep during the day, coming aside and de-stressing. When I talk to a lot of my patients a lot of my diabetic patients, or even patients that we're talking about in terms of weight management, right? We walk through their day and say, hey, my day is stressful and this is going on. And I have them twice a day put on their phone an alarm. And the alarm stops and I said to them, whenever this alarm goes off, you stop at that time or close to it. And you have a centering exercise that you do. So I have one lady that stops at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. right? 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, whatever your time is going to be. On my phone, I have an alarm that goes off. And when it goes off, it says, are you willing at this time to do what it takes to be successful? Just a moment to come aside to get that cortisol level begin going down. All right? So that's where we are. But in terms of fasting, right? So what are the things that we need to know when it comes to fasting? When I talk about fasting, I talk about fasting in three different phases. How do we prepare for the fast? How do we get through the fast? And then how do we break the fast? And here, let me go ahead and put this up so you can see what I'm breaking the fast with today. And this is on the recommendation of one of our community members who sent this in. I've modified it a little bit. All right, so let's see. Let's go over here. Let's do this way. Okay, so here we go. So what I have is a salad, and I always start with the salad. All right, so we're gonna put this here. We'll come back and describe the salad, but I have a salad. I've got some dressing that she recommended, so we're going to use that to see what the numbers are. Of course, I have some fat right here, and then I've got some protein with fat. So we'll come back and we'll talk about those as we move through the discussion when we get to the breaking of the fast. But preparing for the fast, getting through the fast successfully, and then, of course, breaking the fast. All of these three are important because how we prepare for the fast has implications of how well we get through the fast, and of course that has implications for how we break the fast and the success that we maintain over the long haul. So let's go through and how to get ready for the fast. So why is preparation for the fast key? Why is that important? Because how you prepare determines ultimately the success of the fast. And you'll see there, right, preparing physically, mentally, and emotionally. Those are, and there are other areas, but those are the three major places where people will have difficulty. Major places where they have difficulty. Because if we don't do a good job of preparing physically, if we come into the fast with tiredness, then the fast doesn't go well. And throughout the fast, we are always constantly encountering places, because there are going to be some challenges in the fast. And if you're tired, then the brain is going to default to not being able to manage the things that come up in the fast. And so that's not what we want. We want to be able to successfully get through the fast. So if you're not rested, when the body converts from using glycogen to using fat, then you'll feel that like a big dip, and it'll be more profound than it should be. What you eat coming into the fast, and we talked about the last meals that I do. What you eat coming into the fast is very important, because if you're eating something that is high in carbs, high in processed sugar, then you will have spikes in the blood sugar. The spikes in the blood sugar will cause you to produce insulin, or if you're on insulin, if you're on medication, you have to take more medication to deal with those spikes, and that insulin will derail the fasting process. So preparing physically, not just getting the rest, but also the things that you're eating as we are moving closer to that space of fasting. Hydration. Well, let me back up to the rest and the processed foods again for a minute. When you are not rested, your cravings go up. When you're tired, you're going to have cravings for things that you would not be craving ordinarily. Or even if you were craving them before, you would have a better chance of overcoming the craving, right, than you are when you're tired. Because when you're tired, when you're fatigued, the brain says, I don't want to make any more decisions. Let's just go ahead and eat it and be done with it. So the cravings go up when you're not physically rested. When you eat those carbs, those high processed carbs coming into the fast, if your blood sugars are spiking, insulin has to come out, right? And insulin is an appetite stimulant. And so all of a sudden you're in the fast, and the postprandial hours, which we'll talk about, those postprandial hours, the first 6 hours are horrendous not because of fasting, but because, hey, we just ate a bunch of stuff, caused a bunch of insulin to come out, and that insulin is driving my appetite, is driving my cravings, is driving my desire to go get additional comfort foods. So the things that we eat. So physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that's the physical. So how about mental? How about the mental? When we are fasting, it is not just simply I'm not eating stuff. That's important, right? Because we're making a decision that we're not going to eat those things. But that is not all that's there. So there are going to be, well, let me say it a little differently. So many of us use food for a lot of other things other than nutrition. We use food for distraction. We use food for comfort. We use food for avoidance. And when we're fasting, we no longer have that safety net, if you will. So when things come, we can't turn to the food anymore because we're not eating. And so now we have to deal with those things. The way we think about fasting, right? If you came into fast because somebody forced you to come into fast, right? Your spouse, a friend said, let's do this, right? And this is where you are, then that mindset that you have of being in a stressful situation causes cortisol to go up. What does cortisol do? Cortisol inhibits ketones. And so the fast is not going well because the cortisol is driving an appetite, is driving a craving. The cortisol is causing a stressful environment. So mentally, we've got to prepare. We've got to understand what the reason is that we're fasting. What is my goal? What is the end of this? I tell people when I come to fasting, when I'm getting ready to fast, I get excited. I get excited because the food noise is about to go away. Right? I don't have to think about food anymore. And if I've done a good job of coming into the fast with a good meal, then those first 6 hours, those postprandial time, there's not a craving. The only time there's a craving is when I see other people, get ready to eat. And then emotionally. So the things that we encounter or our ability to manage our emotions are directly tied to our ability to successfully get through a fast. So if you come through a fast just kind of white knuckling it, okay, just barely getting through because of all the emotional things that are going on, that's not the space we want to be in. So fasting is a choice. Fasting is a tool. Fasting is something I'm using to right my metabolism. It is a choice that I'm making. And once again, when I'm fasting, I don't have the food to blunt, to manage, to avoid, to soothe, to cushion the emotions. I'm out there bare. I don't have I don't have a safety net. I don't have a buffer. I've got to deal with it myself. So I've got to begin developing the emotional tools that I need, that I'm going to need during the fast. Right? So why is preparation important? Also because it allows you to determine the milestones. So when you fast, okay, what is about to happen? What's going on in the fast? How is my body changing? What are the things I'm going to feel? And how do I get through them? Because if you don't, then fasting is a difficult process. And we don't want it to be a difficult process. We want it to be simple and doable over the long term. Now, all of this, all that we've just discussed is enhanced it's supercharged when we are well rested. If you're not well rested, then guess what? You can derail the things that we are doing, the benefits that we say that we want. Yeah, when you're not well rested, it begins to derail all of that. So those are reasons why preparation is very important. So when we're getting into the fast, we want to make sure that we are processing our food and we are going through our food with all of the tools that we've learned. And remember, balanced bites is this idea that the food that we're eating, right, whole foods first, minimize the processed foods, no added sugar, lean protein, healthy fats, some starchy and non-starchy vegetables. You want to make sure it's tasty and flavorful, and you want to make sure that you have good portion control. This is where we want. This is what we want to happen. Because if we're not doing that, if we are continually because what? here's an interesting one, right? So a lot of times, what will happen is people will anticipate the fast, and they'll say, you know what? I'm about to go into a fast, so I better, and I won't be able to eat whatever, you pick your food of choice. I won't be able to eat this for the next day or the next 2 days, the next 3 days. So I better eat as much as I can. Right? And so say your thing is ice cream or cookies or candy or whatever it is, right? And so you're getting ready to go into the fast to improve your health, to improve your metabolism. That's the goal for the fast. But because your mindset is of such that, man, this is deprivation. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to, right? Whatever your thought process is. And so I'm going to get as much as I can before I get into the fast. And that process derails the fast, because as soon as you do that, we get spikes in the blood sugar. Spikes in the blood sugar cause insulin, and insulin delays the progression into the benefits that we're looking for. So we don't want that, right? We want to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best possible light, best possible space to have all the benefits of fasting. And remember that during the fasting, and going back to the idea of the emotions and the habits and so forth, remember our heat model. The heat model says that there are certain things that are going to trigger us, and those triggers happen during fasting as well. So I mentioned earlier that, during the postprandial period, I don't feel hungry if I've done a good job of getting into the fast with a good last meal. Well, one of the times when I have challenges during fasting is when I see my team at work get up and they go to lunch. I'm not hungry, but just the routine, the habit of doing it together. I start my fast on a weekly basis after my team meeting, which happens on Tuesday. The reason I do that is on Tuesday, we're sitting in a room, all of us hanging out, having our meeting and eating. So can you imagine if I had started that fast prior to the meeting? Now I'm sitting in the room, and it's not that people say, oh, well, if you were strong enough. Well, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. If you're strong enough, great, right? But we are built for community. We're built for connection. We connect over food. And so if I'm sitting in this space with all these people, right, my team, my wife who's there, and they're all eating and they're talking and we're going through stuff, and I'm sitting in the corner, guess what? That's not a good space. And my brain will say to me, hey, you know what? Let's not fast right now. So I deliberately set it after the meal or after the meeting. That's when I start the fast. Number 2, emotions. And I say to people, this is kind of like the roller coaster, right? So you get on a roller coaster. The goal of the roller coaster, well, I think they try to scare you to death, but that's another story. But the goal of the roller coaster is for you to have fun. And so the roller coaster is winding, and at some point in that roller coaster, in every roller coaster, there's a period where it goes up, and it's climbing, okay? And so it gets to the top of that part of the roller coaster. And if you're in that car at the top, you could at that point decide, hey, I don't want to go down. You can yell and scream and jump, do whatever you can, but guess what? The car is coming down. And it's the same thing when our emotions become so intense. You can be angry. You can be frustrated. You can be anxious. You can be whatever, right? And you could at that point say, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna keep fasting. I'm not gonna eat." But if that emotion gets strong enough, the car is coming down, and you are gonna break through your decision that you weren't gonna eat. And so I tell people the goal is not to try to stop it up here. The goal is to make sure the car never goes up, or as little as possible. And then access the things that are around us. There are certain things I don't bring in the house because I know me. I know if it's in the house, guess what? I'm going to eat it. And I'm not just going to eat one. I'm going to eat the whole thing until it's gone. So habits, emotions, access, and then taste. Now, if I'm a manufacturer of some food, you know what my goal is? My goal is to get everybody on the planet to eat as much of it as possible. Come on, right? That's the goal, because that's business. So when I create my food, I want it to be as tasty and flavorful as possible. So when you eat it, you say, man, I can't just eat one of those things. And you are a repeat customer. And that's what's called the bliss point. And the bliss point is the perfect combination of sugar, fat, and salt. When they create foods, right? The perfect combination so that when we eat them, we say, man, I gotta have some more of that. So there is a taste component that drives our triggering. There's also memory. So my sister, well, not just my sister, when I go to New York, somebody picks me up from the airport. That's where I grew up, Brooklyn. And whenever I go, I want to have pizza, hot dogs, Chinese food. Pizza, hot dog, Chinese food. Like if I go right now, that's what I'm going to have. I'm going to stop on the way. Even though I'm going to my mom's house, even though I'm going to my aunt's house, even though they've cooked, what I'm going to have some pizza, Chinese food, and hot dogs. And I kept, why is this? Why is that my thing? And then I was reminded, you remember when Daddy used to pick us up? What did he get us? Pizza, hot dog, Chinese food. And so as old as I am, as grown as I am connecting to the memory of the person, not the food, but the food drives that. And so in order to get that connection, I go and I get the food. And so we get triggered because we remember the time when we had that thing with that person and we felt that way. So the heat model is a powerful idea. And you want to figure out, well, what are yours? Mine is EAT, emotions, access, and taste. All three of those. Those are mine. And I could probably throw the H in there as well. Okay? So when we talk about our fasting, there are all these things that are going to drive us. And we want to make sure as we get into the fast that we are preparing ourselves, that we're cleaning out our environment, that we've got the right mindset, that we understand the goal. What is our plan? Why are we doing this? What is my why? Because your why has to be strong enough. The why has to be strong enough to help push through the times when there are going to be some things that may cause some challenges. Okay? So what are some takeaways that I want you to have from the preparation of fasting? There are several takeaways that come directly from the things we just talked about. Well, number one, what I want you to know is the preparation. That preparation is key. I'm kind of scroll through some of that. Preparation is key. Preparation, we want to prepare mentally, which is very important because it sets the tone for everything. We want to get good rest. We want to eat nutrient-dense meals. And we want to get into community. Okay? And then, so we talked about the preparing for the fast. Now we want to talk about how do we fast successfully and what's going on in the fast. How do we fast successfully? What's going on in the fast? And when we talk about this, sometimes I'll talk about this in three different segments. Well, more than three. In 24-hour segments, I guess I should say. 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. That's where we are at 72, actually a little over 72 right now. And we're going to spend some time talking in the first that first 24 hours. The first 6 hours of what we call fasting is actually really not fasting. It's called the postprandial period. And this is the period where the body has taken the food that you just ate, it's breaking it down, and it is shuffling it, it's sorting it into its different places. It's kind of like at the mail station, right? At the post office. All the mail comes in, and there's some machine or some guy, a gal that's out there, and they're just putting it into, I guess they put it in different zip codes. So that's what the body's doing. You just gave it a bunch of food, and it's going through the food and deciding where the food goes. Right? So this should go to, and here's an important point. One of the main decisions that the body has to make during that time is, do I store this? Do I store it? Or do I use it? Do I store it or do I use it? And the thing that makes the decision between storing and using is, guess what? That's right, it's insulin. So that when you come into the fast, those first 6 hours, the body is sorting, and if you've eaten something that has high carbs, high processing, then your blood sugars are high, and insulin is high. And because insulin is there, because it has come out, it is making a decision that the things that you just ate, they're going to go to storage. And that's called weight gain. That's called fatty liver. That's called high blood pressure. That's called high cholesterol. And so people, a lot of times, will see those things that are happening and say fasting doesn't work. Well, fasting does work. It didn't work in that case because of the things that we came into the fast with. So those first 6 hours are very important because they are when those decisions are being made. So the first 6 hours, postprandial period, the body's making a decision about what to do with the food. Another way of thinking of it is kind of, you go to the grocery store and you buy a bunch of things, right? So you got to make meals for the week. And you go to the grocery store and you shop and you come home and now you got all the groceries, and what you're doing is you're taking the groceries and you're putting them where they need to be. You're putting something in the refrigerator, something in the freezer, something in the pantry, something in the drawers, something in the cabinets. That's what the body's doing at this point. The first 6 hours. And then we get into the next 6 hours, that's 6 to 12 hours, and this is the early fasting stage. So we are now into the fasting process. And so blood sugars are starting to go down, insulin levels are starting to go down because we've taken all the food and we've put it all where it needs to go. So if your body doesn't need to use the energy right away, then the stuff that it's stored it stays in storage. So that for a lot of times we eat and we're in that postprandial period, right? The first 6 hours. And then before the body is ready to actually use some stuff, guess what we do again? We eat. Well, when we eat again, the insulin was just about to get ready to go down, and we eat again. And most of the times we're eating carbs. And so the insulin goes up again, and it stores again. And 6 hours later, hey, the insulin levels are going down, blood sugar is going down, and guess what we do? We eat again. As a matter of fact, we do more, it's more than that 6 hours, right? So every 4 hours. So you eat at 8 o'clock you eat breakfast. 9, 10, 11, 12, we eat lunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, we eat supper. And then, oh my goodness, we're watching a movie at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And we're going to have some popcorn. So that whole process, all that we've done is we kept putting stuff in. We kept going to the grocery store and buying stuff. We never started cooking. And so the whole time, the body's trying to figure out what to do with the food. And most of the time, we already have some energy that's available because the blood sugars are up, right? And so the body says, well, I don't have to use this energy right now because I've got energy over here. So what am I going to do with this? Well, let's go ahead and let's store it. So that next, say, the 6 to 12 hours is when we're starting to see blood sugars go down, and those blood sugars are, when the blood sugar goes down, the insulin goes down, and the body is now starting to go back to those storage places and say, hey, give me the stuff I gave you. I need to use it for energy. So that's the 6 to 12 hour period. And then the next 12 to 18 hours, this is called the transition to using fat. Transition to using fat. So your body has used up the energy that's there, and it's now going and it says, hey, give me the stuff that I gave you, and it's beginning to use that up. So let's use a different analogy here. Same food, same shopping idea. So you go to the grocery store and you come home with the food, and you're gonna make some rice with some chicken. But you went to one of those big box stores, right? So where you go and you buy a 50-pound bag of rice for whatever, right? And so you come home and you take some of the rice and you put it in a pot and you cook it. And the big bag of rice that's left, you put it in the pantry, storage. So you cook the rice and you and your family sit down and you eat it. But there's some leftovers. So notice we got 3 components now. So one, we cooked some and we ate it. We're using it right away. There's some leftovers. We put that in the refrigerator. And then the big bag is in the pantry. So we got 3 places. On the table so we can eat it. In the freezer or in the refrigerator, that's the leftovers. And then the storage part is in the pantry. The body does the same thing. So you eat something and right away it's looking around and say, hey, do I need to eat this right now? Do I need to use this right now? Okay, yeah, let me use it. Well, I've used up all that I can right now because I've got enough energy because the brain is working, the lungs are working, the heart is going, the muscles are going. So what do I do with the rest? Well, I store it. I put it in the refrigerator, and that's called the liver. Well, the liver is full. I don't have to put anything else in there. Well, where does the excess beyond that go? It goes into the pantry. And I don't go back to the pantry to take any more rice out until the rice in the refrigerator is gone, and of course the rice on the table is gone. Then I go back to get more. The same thing goes on in the body. So the body is doing exactly the same things as we're doing at the house. So right, and so now we're transitioning to fat. So the glucose levels continue to go down. They have an increase in fatty oxidation. So now we're looking at the fat cells and say, hey, give me some of that fat so I can use it. Right, the liver starts gluconeogenesis, so that's making sugar from non-carb sources. Right, so we're getting the fat. Boom, 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 boom. The energy may dip because the body now is running low, if you will, on glycogen. And so people can be irritable, right? You get some hunger in this place, in this place right here. You can have some shifts as the body's going from one source of energy to another. I think of this kind of like one of the Marvel movies. Remember when Iron Man is taking out the old arc reactor, he puts a new one in and he screws it in and goes, okay? So between when he took one out and he put the other one in, guess what? His energy was going down. You guys, if you saw that movie, okay? All right, and then in the 18 to 24 hour period, this is where ketosis is beginning. The glucose levels have gone down. The glycogen in the liver is used up, and this takes about 24 to 36 hours. And now the body says, in actuality, I need the fat to burn the fat to bring my blood sugars into where I want them to be, or to give my body energy. And so this process is what we're looking for. 24 to 36 hours. Now, if you come into fasting with high sugars, this process takes longer because the body has to use up all the sugar that's running around the blood. It has to try to store some stuff in the liver. And if it can't store it in the liver, then it has to package it and send it to the fat cells. So if your blood sugars are so high, it takes time for that process to happen. And so you think you're fasting for 24 hours, but it took the body 36 hours to get rid of all the sugar. And you say, I'm going to end the fast at 24 hours. Well, guess what? When you're ending the fast and eating again, the body still hasn't gotten to the point where the glycogen is gone. So how we come into the fast, also very, very important for the benefits that we will see in fasting. So that's the 24 hours. And then if we want to go just a little bit longer, so 24 to 36 hours, and this is called fat adaptation. And so in earnest now, your body is using a significant amount of fat. Ketones are increasing. Energy levels are up. Beta hydroxybutyrate is being produced, which is like the focus ketone for the body, for the brain. Muscles are becoming more stable because growth hormone has come out. And as we get further into the fast, we start getting brain-derived natriuretic factor, right, which is a super miracle grow for the brain. We get AMPK, which says to the body, hey, we need to repair. Autophagy is in full force. This is the recycling process the body goes through. All of that is happening. And we're getting supercharged in terms of our metabolism. Insulin resistance is going down. The amount of insulin we have has gone down, so our appetite is not as stimulated. Appetite is not as stimulated, insulin has gone down, the body's burning fat from the fat cells, so our weight's going down. Look at all the downstream things that we're getting simply by doing the fast, and doing the fast well, and making sure that we're rested when we get into the fast. That's the beauty, well, one of the beauties of fasting. And so when we talk about fasting, right, preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, understanding what's going on in my body, and then, of course, breaking the fast, just as important as everything else that we will do. If you don't break the fast well, you can undo some of the benefits that you had during the fast, which we do not want to do. Okay? And so here is a good place for me to start doing something, and that is, we're going to start talking about the food. And since we're going to talk about food, great place for me to start eating. Okay, so once again, let's go back to what we've got. So right here, I've got some, this is a salad, and it's actually a cucumber and tomato salad. I've got some mixed nuts in there, and I'm going to add some cheese. Yes, I am. And I'm adding cheese. That gives me some, I guess I could have added avocados to that. Let's go ahead and grab some of this out. Right, could have added avocados when we talk about healthy fats. And then one of our, this is one of our community members, and this was what she recommended. So let me see if I can. This is, and no, you know, we're not promoting any particular brand, but this is one she recommended. So she said someone made this for her and it was delicious. Of the things in the salad, the things that are probably going to raise my blood sugars are the tomatoes and the salad dressing. Well, the nuts. Today, tomatoes, the mixed nuts, and the salad dressing. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and put some. And I shake this up. It's Tuscan Italian with lemon, garlic herbs. So let's go ahead and get some on there. I usually do ranch, so we'll see what. I've not had this before. And to add additional protein, I have, this is a hamburger patty with some cheese on it. Got some pepper jack cheese and a slice of cheddar. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to. So most of the times when you see me eating on the show, eating for fasting, getting out of a fast or getting into a fast, you will see that there is salad on the plate in the bowl. The salad actually works as my filler, and so when I eat the salad, I'm getting bulk. I'm also getting fiber. Right, so that is my stretch for my stomach, and the fiber, which blunts the absorption of carbs. And then you'll see me add additional things to that list. So it's always going to start with salad. I should say always. Most of the time it will start with salad, because I've done shows here where we started with something else. So I'm not going to say always. So it blunts the absorption of the carbs, and it helps me with my bulk. Remember, it takes about 20 minutes for the signal to get from the brain, from the stomach to the brain, that we are full. And so if we're not careful, we can out-eat. We can out-eat the meal. So some quick tips before I jump into that and start eating. Some quick tips for fasting. For breaking the fast. So when we're breaking the fast, we want to monitor blood sugars. We're going to monitor our blood sugars. And we'll put my monitor up here in just a minute so you can see what that is. We're going to monitor the blood sugars because it's important to see what different foods do to your body, what exercise does for your body, what rest does for your body, all of those things, right? Portion control. If I could have everybody do one thing when it comes to meals, right? When we talked about balanced bites, whole foods, minimized processing, no added sugar, lean protein, healthy fats, starchy, non-starchy vegetables, tasty and flavorful, and then portion controlled. Sometimes it's not that we're eating the wrong thing, but we're just eating too much of the thing. And then we want to eat slowly. This is with the idea that, hey, it takes about 20 minutes for the signal to get there. And we want to make sure that we are avoiding sugary processed foods. Very, very important, because that will cause problems for us. Right? That will cause problems for us. We want to also make sure that we are hydrated. Make sure that we're hydrated. Hydration is very important. Before the fast, when we prepare, during the fast, and then breaking the fast as well. Hydration, very important for us to be able to be successful. And then what I want you to prioritize, right? So in your consideration, and let me go ahead, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start eating. Get over here. And while I do that, I'm going to pull up my monitor. So right now I'm 108 on the Libre and 65 on the Dexcom. So let's go ahead and let's get some of this start going in. Delicious. Get to the salad. That is good. So you're seeing first meal in actually 73 hours, because we went a little longer than our normal 72. So as I said, one of our community members recommended this salad and the dressing. Now, she didn't recommend the cheese. I added that myself. But so Pam, thank you. And it is good. Actually, the dressing is a little light. but it has the flavor. And I think that's one of the reasons I like ranch. But ranch tends to be a lot heavier. But delicious. All right. So some considerations when it comes to breaking the fast that I want you to remember. So when breaking the fast, we want you to prioritize some things, right? So we want to prioritize the foods that you can eat to maintain good blood sugars, while giving you nutritional value and things that are gentle on the digestive systems. You want to make sure you're eating low glycemic index foods, lean proteins, healthy fats, right? Those are all the things that we've talked about when we talked about the balanced bites. Because how you end the fast is important. The things that you eat at the end of the fast, if you don't do a good job, then your blood sugars are going to spike. When blood sugar spikes, then insulin comes out. When insulin comes out, then all the things that we thought we were getting the benefit of, all of those become problematic, and we lose the benefit that we were getting. Okay? And we do not want to do that. We want to make sure that we are getting optimal benefit from all the things that we're doing. Yep. And so fasting paired with rest, very, very important. Restoration, very important. So fasting opens the door, and the rest gives us the space, gives us the chance to improve and get better. It's kind of like buying a house, and you gut the house. That's what fasting does. It takes out all the junk. It resets. And then now resting allows us the opportunity to get in there and begin fixing the house up. So the pairing of fasting and rest, very, very important. And we'll continue talking about the pillars as we move through the Limitless Living Health Action Plan. We'll be going through more of that. You want to make sure that you're staying tuned for all of that. All right, and so that's our review of fasting, how to prepare for the fast, what happens in our fast as we get through the fast, and then how to break the fast to maintain those benefits that we see. I do see some of our couple of community members out there, so we're going to hop over and we're going to say hi here really quick. And so, hey, here's Anthony Paul is on the line. Hey, how are you? Thank you for coming through. And he said, are these numbers constant with age? And I'm assuming we're talking about the numbers that have to do with what normals are. And yes, so the normal numbers are the normal numbers with age. So there's no variation that we found. Now, because of how, let me say it a little differently. Because of safety, we have said that, hey, we are allowing certain age populations of people to have higher numbers. For example, if someone comes to me and say they're, 70 years old, and they have heart disease, and they have kidney failure, and they have congestive heart failure, and they have fatty liver, and right, so there's all these things, then what has happened is we've said, right, and here's the industry secret, we've said that if we try to bring that person into what's considered a normal range, right, that person may not be able to handle that because there are all these other comorbid issues going on. All right, so they're not used to being at a blood sugar of 99. They feel shaky when they're at a blood sugar of 99. But they feel shaky because they're not used to being there, and they have heart disease, and they have kidney failure, and they have all these other things. But if they didn't have all those other things, then normal is normal for them. And so that's why I tell everybody, your body does not know that we've decided that you could be higher. It still wants to be in a normal range. And it is the chronic comorbid conditions that are going on in a person's life that then says, hey, let's not put them in normal, let's leave them in a higher range. But the higher range is still causing damage. Right? Still causing damage. It's a very good question. And so, hey, Gregory comes through. Hey, we give you a hand clap and some music. So Gregory says, so it is not terribly bad to spike periodically. So once again, going back to my analogy or to my concept of normal. Anytime the blood sugars are not normal, they are causing damage. It's kind of like you've got a boat, right? And the boat, you got a rowboat or even one of these little speed boats. You got a yacht or something, and the boat is on the water, and there's a guy in the water, and he has a safety pin, little bitty safety pin, and he comes over to the boat and he sticks a hole in the boat. The boat doesn't go down because the hole that he stuck is too small. Did it cause damage? Yes, it did. You're like, well, that's not important. It's not that bad. Well, suppose the guy comes back and he sticks another hole. Did the boat go down? No, because he now has two holes, and that's still not small. But if he keeps sticking holes in that boat, right? Guess what? At some point, we've gotten enough holes in the boat that the boat starts to sink. And that's the concept that we don't teach. So people will say to me all the time, oh, I wait till my blood sugar goes up and then I see what it is and then I treat it. And it comes right back down. And I'm excited because it's, yes, it came down, but the fact is it went up. So the coming down is great. The coming down doesn't cause damage. It's the going up that caused the damage. So I'm excited when I see people who are treating blood sugars and the blood sugars are coming down, but it's not the coming down that's the problem. It's the going up that's the issue. It's a great question. I love that. And so he says, what about dropping, right? So what about dropping? We don't like dropping either. As a matter of fact, I was talking to somebody today, one of our patients, who was having some low blood sugars. We don't like low blood sugars either, right? So our goal is to maintain, right? Now, low blood sugars, and everybody thinks they know what low blood sugars are below 70. So if your blood sugar is 70 or above, it is not low. That is what low is, below 70. In fact, there are people who live in blood sugars below 70. So if I get someone who is very athletic, a gymnast, right? Someone who works out all the time. If I check their blood sugars on a regular basis, they spend a lot of their times below 70. That's because their body has adapted to be able to use fat and carbs, right? And they're adapted to be able to do that. So they live in the 60s without them having, and we don't call that a problem. We don't call that, hey, they have, well, we don't call them it anything. Right? Because that's where they live. But we don't like blood sugars that are below 70 either. Yeah, we want it to be in the normal range. All right, so that brings me to our concept. So today in the office, so we worked today. We saw patients today. We don't normally see patients on Fridays, but every now and then we do. And on Fridays, when we go, we are a little bit more, we don't wear scrubs and the things we normally wear. And so today we wore our t-shirts, our Limitless Living t-shirts, and jeans and so forth. And limitless living is a concept that is the foundation of all the things that I teach. It says that we're not allowing anything to prevent us from doing what we need to do. Anything from outside, there's nothing you can do. No situation. No scheduling. No weather issue. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing from outside, or there's nothing from inside. No memory, no hurt feelings, no depression, no anxiety, no worry, no anger. None of that is going to prevent me from doing what I need to do. I'm breaking free from the constraints, from the boundaries, from those obstacles that seem to be in my way. I'm moving beyond that, and I'm presenting my best self, my best health, and the best plans for my life. Now, I want you to go through those three with me. My best self, which means that I've got to be constantly working on me. How to problem solve. How to be in relationships. How to deal with history, the memories, the trauma. How to be social. I've got to figure it out. If I don't like my job, and that's causing me to buffer, to go eat stuff all the time, and I'm putting on weight, even if I'm not putting on weight, I've got to figure out how to do that. Do I get another degree? Do I get another certification? Do I change jobs? I'm presenting my best self. I'm presenting my best health, which means wherever I am right now, I'm always in the process of trying to figure out how to be healthier. There are things that I've done in my life that are now causing damage now, right? So I made some decisions back then. And you're thinking, man, it's too late for me. No, it's not too late. You've had a heart attack. You're on dialysis. You've had eye problems. You've got neuropathy. Yeah, it is what it is. We can't change what happened back then, but I can change right now what happens into the future. So I'm presenting my best self, my best health, and I'm presenting my best plans. A lot of people don't succeed, not because they don't have drive, not because they don't have desire, not because they don't have vision, not because they don't have willpower. They don't succeed because they don't have structure. They don't have a way of making progress even when motivation goes away. Because a lot of times people listen to me, they come to the office and, man, this is so exciting. I love the fact that you told me this, Dr. Woode. And they go away, and if they don't come back to see me, or if they, for some reason, something happens where they are away for a long time, the motivation started when they were in the office. As a matter of fact, you're watching this video right now, and you're highly motivated. But motivation is fleeting. But what lasts is structure. So if you put structure in place, it doesn't matter if you're motivated when you get up in the morning. I don't feel like getting up, but I've got a structure. Got to have somebody who's going to come pick me up to go to the gym. Guess what? I go to the gym. I don't feel like it. I don't want to do it. Today was not a good day, but that person showed up. That's the structure. Somebody came up and they rung the bell or called me and said, hey man, I'm outside. So my best self, my best health, and my best plans for my life. That's what gives me success. And all of that is implemented in our Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, with the blogs, with the podcast. Right? Changing that mindset. We empower with the tools that we're learning. Fasting, the Limitless Living Health Action Plan, the 100-Day Walk to Consistency, the Strength Training and Mindset that we're going through right now, that series, the Balance Bites. All of those are tools that help you to implement the things you learn. And then we encourage with community. Community is so important because community says that I don't have to do this alone. If you want to be successful long-term and you want to continue being successful, make sure you have people around you. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. And Another 72 hour in the books. Another week, another time you shown up, another place where you said, yeah, this is how I roll right now. I am not going to go out like they told me I was going to go out. I am doing what I can for my health. There are over 1 billion people on the planet right now who have diabetes or pre-diabetes. You can be a voice for change. So as this is another component of limitless living, it says, as I improve, right? So I'm presenting my best self, my best health, and my best plans for my success. And your success has to do also with the success of the community around you. So don't just hold it into yourself. Say to somebody, hey, we don't have to keep having heart attacks. We don't have to keep going on dialysis. We don't have to keep going blind. We don't have to keep losing limbs. We can make a change. We can be better. Tomorrow, we'll be back with a video from the vault. And then on Sunday morning at 6 a.m., This Week in Review. And then we'll be right back here on Monday for Dwain Woode MD Live at 7 p.m. Central as we continue walking through the Limitless Living Health Action Plan and setting ourselves up for success when it comes to our health. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted. And I want you to get out there and live a limitless life. And we'll see you at our next show. Bye-bye.